Hello and welcome to the Wheel of Crime podcast, the podcast where two ladies play games, mumble profanities, and laugh way too often. Also, this podcast does cover topics of sensitive nature, and as such, listener discretion is advised.
Hello, sluts, and welcome back to the Wheel of Crime podcast. Just kidding.
Hey there, sluts. In case you guys wanted to take the warning seriously, we're fresh out the gate here today with our cuss words.
Get it.
Fucking get it.
Feeling saucy today, apparently.
I guess. I mean, live and let live, girly pops. My name is Emily. I don't know if Jen said her name, but that's Jen.
Sup?
And you are all her sluts today. Hope you guys are excited about the promotion.
Love it for you.
Oh, man. How was your week, Jen? It's been ages.
Yes, it has been ages. I was just complaining to Emily about our dog trainer, so that's how my week's going.
Yeah, it's if you want like the rounded up version of Jen's grief, it's just that people are just not people. Here's my thing. It goes into a broader issue that I've noticed lately. I just don't think people know how to value other people's time. Like, this dog trainer keeps canceling on them and wanting to, like, extend the training weeks, but week after week after week. And it's like, bitch, like, people have lives and plans. Like, you cannot keep forcing people to accommodate your schedule just because you don't want to do stuff.
Yeah, like, I got things to do, and I don't know. I get annoyed because I'll give you all the Cliff Notes version since we're talking about it, but basically we signed up for a 6-week class per the recommendation of our vet that's like has like a few other dogs in the class just so we could, work on socialization, because the big thing with my dog is like he's got a lot of fear and I think some trauma from his first home, and we're working on it, right? But it just like has not been a helpful class. And then like out of like the amount of weeks that we've been doing it, there's only been like half the classes that have actually happened, and they keep like pushing them back, like, oh, we're canceling it this week but we'll extend another week at the end. And I'm just like, I have like other things that I'm doing this summer, like I don't have time. And it just feels like the first class, it's so funny because she was like, consistency is key, but this has been like the most inconsistent thing of all time.
That's so funny. I wonder if she was saying that to like set you guys up and be like, oh my God, you're going to be so responsible. And then she's like, just kidding. I'm inconsistent as fuck and don't trust anything I say.
Teehee.
I don't know. I feel like people are just living in their own worlds now. Like, obviously people just do. Like, I get it. But at the same time, like, people we all have to do things every day that we don't like. Like, I don't care if you don't feel like going to doggy class or whatever it is. If you're the one hosting, you don't get a choice.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just kind of done at this point. I think I'm going to hire like a private trainer and go that route just to like address his fears, because I think it'd be more effective for us at this point, because I just feel like this class is also, I think, geared towards a lot of like the like basics, and honestly I've just found that like teaching him these things at home first is way more effective for us. Like honestly, I find myself doing like a lot of prep work for all these classes and trying to teach him everything before we get to class. That way it's like not him learning it for the first time, because anytime we've done that, he just like, there's just too much happening for him to really like actually learn stuff.
And it's stressful for him too, and that's the last thing you want to do when you're trying to work with a puppy and everything. But yeah, I am mad on your behalf, because that would be very frustrating. I could say my week has been much less eventful, just work stuff. And I've noticed the other day that I've managed to acquire a crazy farmer's tan. Like, I have about 20 different tan lines on my body. And I'm kind of at a point now where I'm like, do I just like embrace laying outside in a bikini like girls tend to do sometimes, because I've never been like,
Yeah.
because I get kind of bored is my thing. I don't want to do it because I get bored, but now I'm kind of like, well, maybe I should do it and just like bring a book out there. Like my front lawn is so much closer now than I feel like it has been in the past, and maybe it's time. You know what I mean?
I feel like that's the ultimate summer vibe. Reading while tanning and having like a crispy Diet Coke if you're me, or an iced tea for you.
Yeah, I do love my iced tea, so that it does speak to me. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about now, because yeah, like I said, just with everything that I've done so far this summer, like I have two different like lengths of tan line, like short tan lines, and a t-shirt tan line, and a bikini tan line, and I wouldn't mind trying to even it out a little bit, because I used to work at a tanning salon like a long time ago, just in case our listeners aren't from ye old days when I talked a little bit more about my many careers that I've had, apparently.
Yeah.
But it's kind of made me a little bit wigged out now about like how your skin starts to look if you use tanning booths specifically too much, and some of these other things. I wouldn't mind getting like cooking myself naturally. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like a natural tan's for sure the way to go. Me personally, the only tan I really have is a horrific one that's like a circle in my back. And from like one tank top, my one tank top, and my Birkenstock feet tan.
That'll do it. I know, right? Like it's just like stuff that has like a weird. It's like I also have like a weird crop top tan line, like a thick strap one, and I think that's just here to stay at this point. Or like my stomach, I have like weird like I have like one line on my stomach where I'm just really cooked. And then everything else is like varying degrees of pale, which is lovely. I feel so hot.
Truly the hottest you could ever be.
Literally. All right, should we spin for our first wheel of questions?
Yes, spin away. What's the worst movie you have ever seen?
I don't actually know. I don't watch a lot of movies. I feel like most movies I see are just kind of like, the worst they get is like, okay. I don't know about like bad. Like there's nothing I can think of where I like went to go see anything in theaters and I like walked out, you know?
But if you had to pick a movie that you dislike the most out of all the movies you've ever seen in your adult life and your childhood, what was it?
That I dislike the most? I don't know. Like, when I was a kid... Oh, here's one. So, when I was a kid, that's probably the time of my life where I watched the most movies because I had literally nothing else to do. But my brother that's like 2 years younger than me, he was obsessed with watching the Country Bears. And I just find the Country Bears so deeply unsettling. Like, just disturbing on a whole other level. And he loved it. He loved their, like, songs and their hillbilliness and everything. He just thought it was hilarious. I hated it. If I could have taken that VHS and genuinely, like, thrown it away and buried it and burned it without getting in trouble, I would have. I hated that thing.
Aww.
There's like a scene where one of the Country Bears gets sucked into like the car wash, and I remember being a kid and just thinking that was like the most horrifying thing I'd ever seen in my life. Like I was so scared of car washes for so long after that.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like I kind of feel bad for my older siblings. I feel like I did that to them a lot more than they ever did it to me. Like I had a lot of like hyperfixation movies as a child that I were like sick of watching.
So what would be the worst movie then that you've ever seen?
Oof.
Because I feel like you're more prepared for this question than I am.
Yeah, I have seen a lot of bad movies. There's only a few that I've ever contemplated walking out of because I don't really like to walk out of movies. I usually like stick through it, but the 2017 remake of Flatliners is my arch nemesis. I hate that movie. It was so dog shit and I wanted to leave so badly. I was like angry with how bad it was. I was like, this movie sucks.
That's so random. What is this movie about? How did you get there?
So it's a remake of a movie from the 90s. I haven't seen the original, but I don't know if I ever can now. But basically it's this like group of teens who are all like in medical school, and they experiment with near-death experiences. So like, you know, when you flatline and they like bring you back to life or whatever.
Oh yeah.
So they're purposefully doing that to themselves. They're making themselves flatline so they can experience like near death or like what it's like in the afterlife, and then they bring them back.
I feel like I'd seen advertisements of this somewhere.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh, then like death is kind of like haunting them throughout the rest of the movie or whatever, because they've done it too many times and blah, blah, blah. But it was just so dog shit. And I was like looking forward to this movie.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, that's a really interesting premise. Mm-hmm. Like, slay. But no, not slay.
So like, what made it dog shit though? Was it the acting or what?
Oh, I don't even know. Like, I just was, like, so viscerally angry while watching it. Like, I don't even remember what I hated so much about it, because I saw it in theaters when it came out. Right. Which, it's been quite a few years now, since 2017. But, like, I remember being so mad. I was like, why am I here? Like, what? I paid money to watch this.
Watch it be one of those things where, like, you didn't know it at the time, but you were mad about something else, and you took that anger out on this movie. And one day you're going to end up rewatching this, and you're going to be like, oh, wow, it actually wasn't that bad.
Probably. Like, it was probably just, like, mediocre at best. But, like, oh, it just, like, gave me such a viscerally angry reaction, and I don't know why.
Weird.
I just hate it.
That's so fun for you.
And now you all know my beef. It's part of my lore.
That's a deep cut of Jen lore. I didn't even know that one. Oh man, that's funny. All right, let's spin for our next question.
Have you ever bought... I already know the answer to this. Okay. But have you ever bought anything questionable online?
Oh, 100%. Multiple times. I think I probably have something questionable coming in the mail literally right now. Probably. I don't know what it is, but I feel like I do. It's something.
I feel like you, because of the subject matter of what we're about to get into, I feel like you need to clarify what your questionable things are.
Oh. Like, I'm somebody who just, like, my husband lovingly calls me a collector. Like, I just buy a lot of things that other people deem are unusual, but are interesting to me. Like, I've bought, like, a mystery taxidermy kit on the internet before, where I just got like a miscellaneous amount type of like taxidermied stuff. Have you bought
anything illegal?
No. I'm not pushing the envelope when it comes to like legality. Like, I'm a good girl when it comes to that kind of stuff still. But like, I've bought like a past life reading on Etsy before, or like, you know, just other random things that other people think are probably strange and unusual.
Right.
But yeah.
So just like kind of eclectic. Nothing like illegally questionable.
No, not like illegally questionable, but definitely questionable as in like overall interest, I would say.
They're like where people are like, why would you buy that? Why?
Literally, yes. They're like, why do you need a taxidermy kit of 30 mystery taxidermy items? And I'm like, I don't know, because I think it'd be cool to own the jawbone of a gopher, or like other random things. I think that'd be neat. I want to see it, and I want it to be mine.
Amazing. Love that for you.
Right? So that's fun. And what about you? Have you bought anything questionable on the internet?
I feel like I've never really bought anything that weird or questionable. Like, I'm sure I've made questionable purchases, but more in the way of like, why didn't you measure? Why do you now have a tiny this thing when you thought it was going to be full size?
Questionable as in not well thought out.
Correct.
I see. That would be also how I ended up with a teeny tiny frying pan for a singular egg. It was cast iron though, so there we go.
Yeah, I hate that for both of us.
Terrible. Yeah, alright then. I'll spin for our next question.
Have you ever taken advice from someone you met online?
Yeah, I guess. Sometimes, like, if there's something going on, like cooking wise, and I'm like, how to tell if my mozzarella has gone bad. Like, I'll look online to see what people say and if it's still edible or not. Like, yeah, I take advice off the internet.
Yeah, I feel like when I wrote this question, I meant more like, you met someone on like back in the day when you would meet like random people on like Facebook and you become like Facebook friends, but you'd never met. And like they told you to do something.
Yeah, no, never. Like when it came around to that stuff, I just always figured that people were bullshitting me. Like if somebody was like,
Yeah.
if somebody was like, oh, you should go do this because it reminds me of like chain emails where it's like, if you don't go into the bathroom and say this in the mirror 3 times, like our most recent episode before this one, and
you'll be haunted forever.
You'll be haunted for the next 10 years. I fully every time was like, yeah, you're bullshitting me. Like I've never taken advice from that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Or even if it's not like somebody sent me a Facebook message and they were like, I'm Johnny Appleseed from the other middle school and you should do this because it would be because whatever reason. If it like never, not even once. Again, I'm like, yeah, I don't know you and you're full of shit. Like I was never into that. I would, if I don't know you, I do not believe you. That was kind of my general train of thought forever, I think.
That's fair. I feel like I'm very much on the same page with you where like I've taken advice from like people online, but not necessarily like randos that I've actually talked to.
Yeah, if you're an individual person messaging me trying to give me advice, absolutely not. If I'm looking for an answer to a question and it's like in an online forum, then perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely Googled my symptoms and then gone to the hospital for it to be nothing at all.
Yeah, and
thanks, WebMD, for making me look stupid in front of a hot doctor.
And thank you, Reddit, for giving me food poisoning because you told me that I could eat this when I actually couldn't.
Fucking awesome. All right, let's spin for our last question.
Okay. All right, what is our last question?
Have you ever been scammed out of money? I nearly have. I almost got sucked into an MLM in high school, and then I backed out because they're like, we need $2,000. And I was like, joke's on you. I don't have $2,000.
It's hilarious. See, I don't know. I guess it depends on the definition of scam. Like, have I bought something thinking I was buying something else and then I get sent trash in the mail? 100%.
Absolutely.
100%. MLM, have not had a history personally with them. So not on that front. But I've never fallen for a phishing email. Like, I've never, ever fallen for when people message you and they're like...
Neither.
And they're like, fill out this online form. Your package is being held at the border. Whatever. Never once have I fallen for something like that.
Yeah. I feel like I've always just been like so afraid to fall for something like that I question even legitimate ones.
For anything like that, my thought usually, like if it's something a little bit questionable, like, oh, it's to do with your package being held, or you need to do these different things, or, oh, blah, blah, blah. I'm always like, I'm just not going to do that. And if they want me to pay, I'll probably get a letter in the mail. You know, like,
yeah,
that's always been my train of thought. I'm like, why are you messaging me on WhatsApp saying that my package is being held at the border? Mail me if you're legitimate, right?
Or I'll find the original email with the original tracking number and I'll click on that to go to the website to see if there's anything.
Yeah, or anything with email stuff. Like, every time I receive an email and it's so questionable, I always click on the email itself, and almost every single time it is some bogus email. And I'm like, yeah, right. As if you're sending me free Viagra pills. Mom XOXO at mgm.com.
Yeah, it's always the emails where it's like apple.igloo
at ponyexpress.com.
Yeah, where you're like, I feel like that's not Apple's domain.
I feel like you might be fake. I mean, just a thought, an inkling.
Apple.customerservice.legit at gmail.com.
.legit, yeah. Or not even hashtag. Notascam.com. .gov
Oh, yeah,
or
this is
whatever.
totally fine.
But yeah. All right. So my guess, because that was all the questions, right?
Yes.
My guess is that somebody falls for one of those phishing emails where it's like, I'm a prince in Africa and you need to pay me money to fly me over here. And then they get so upset when their prince doesn't show up on that airplane that they paid for that they, get off the computer. That they,
It's chaotic in here today.
our pets are going crazy. It looks fine. I'm gonna assume everything's fine. She was just like sitting on all of the keys. Whatever.
Nice.
Anyways, and they get so mad that they go on a crime spree because they're so mad about their Arabian prince not showing up.
Not even close. When you hear the actual story, I think you'll be horrified at how wrong you were and wish that you were right.
That does typically happen when we do this Q&A with your stories. It's much more exciting when we do them for mine. I'm usually just horrified and disappointed when I hear your stories.
Yeah. I do want to give like an extra disclaimer. If you do not like to hear about anything to do with child pedophilia or SA, you do not want to listen to this episode. I'm just going to warn you right now. It's a very intense story.
Noted. All right.
So, here we go. I'm so sorry, Em.
Thanks. Except
Because you
not.
have no choice but to listen.
Okay. I'm ready.
And after we finish, I'll tell you how I got down the rabbit hole of finding out about this story.
Amazing. That's one of my favorite parts when this happens. Except for when it's not.
Yes. So, today we're going to talk about a man, because of course it's always a man, right? Named Peter Gerard Scully. And he was born on January 13th, 1963 in Melbourne, Australia. Peter claimed that as a child he was allegedly raped by a Catholic priest. Aside from that, not a lot is known about his childhood. However, in his adult life, Peter appeared to be a normal guy. He lived in Narwarn suburb of Melbourne with his wife and 2 kids. At some point, Peter took a 180 turn. He left his family and moved to the city. Neighbors remember him as dodgy. Since leaving his wife and the suburb, rumors would reach them of Peter's ill-gotten wealth and sexual deviancy, which I'm sure is awesome to hear about your ex-husband and the father of your children.
Yes. That's exactly what people wish to hear.
Exactly. In Melbourne, Peter dove into a life of crime. He developed a property scheme that defrauded 20 investors of more than $2.68 million. Some of Peter's associates revealed that he brought his quote-unquote girlfriend, a teenage Malaysian girl named Ling, to Australia. He proceeded to pimp her out as an escort and to participate in suburban sex parties. Peter is driven by one thing, a former associate of his said, money. Peter's associate, who did not want to be named, said he lost more than $200,000 to Peter in the dodgy property scheme, and he became obsessed with tracking him. I traced him to the Philippines, but he disappeared. In 2011, Peter fled to Cagayan de Oro, an island of Mindanao in the Philippines, before he could be charged with 117 fraud and deception offenses. So he really dodged a bullet there.
This man just does not know how to act. It's like every sentence you're like, and then he did this terrible thing. But then also after he did this terrible thing, he did a somehow worse and more terrible thing right following that.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
Okay.
So the result of Australian Securities and Investment Commission investigation that started in 2009. So charges were laid on Peter and a co-accused who cannot legally be named, but Peter had already left the country. A warrant was issued for his arrest, triggering warnings at Australian airports to nab him when he returned, but Peter remained in the Philippines. From the Philippines, Peter began to grow an international pedophile ring based on videos of children being sexually abused and tortured. He would live stream these on the dark web for paying customers through his production company, No Limits Fun. Victims were procured by Peter with promises to impoverished parents of work or education, or were solicited by his 2 Filipino girlfriends. So basically, he would find families who were living on the street, take their kids from them, say, I'm going to feed them and educate them. And he's like a well-off Australian guy. Mm-hmm. And so they would willingly give him their kids, and he would make horrific videos of them for the dark web.
What a douchebag. Like, he seriously cannot help himself. He just has to keep getting worse.
Literally, like, stunned. Too stunned to speak.
Straight up evil.
Yeah. So his girlfriends, Carm and Alvarez and Liesel Margallo Costana, and other female acquaintances such as Maria Dorothea Chai, both Carm and Liesela, also abused children in Peter's videos. So the content that Peter produced was horrific. Videos of rape and torture involving children as young as 18 months old.
Ew.
Yeah, like just let that sink in for a sec.
Evil. And he's got, what, 2 women in with him doing this?
Yes.
Like, sick. So fucking sick.
So the most infamous of his dark web videos was titled Daisy's Destruction. And it was reportedly so disturbing that many investigators believed it was just a myth. Like, literally, this video was talked about on sites like Creepypasta and, like, whatever, as if it was literally folklore. Like, it was an urban legend. People did not think it actually exists because that's how fucking fucked up it was.
That's really bad. If something's so horrific, people have to assume that it's fake. Like, that is so fucking terrible.
Unfortunately, it wasn't. Urged on by Peter, some of the most severe physical abuse was carried out on the children by one of his girlfriends, then 19-year-old Liesel, who was
19?
a formerly... Yeah.
19,
so she...
And she's abusing kids.
Well, she was a formerly trafficked as a child, so I feel like she's kind of, unfortunately, in the system, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, like, I feel, we can talk about this more later, but I feel very conflicted about Liesel, because she was literally, like, kind of bred into this lifestyle.
Especially if she herself was trafficked, like, that is such a... It's hard because it's you could even say she doesn't know any better. Like, she doesn't know any other life than to do this.
Exactly. That's why, I don't know. It's still horrific what she's doing, though. Like, it doesn't excuse what she's doing. It's just you can kind of understand more where she's coming from.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one, where it's like, it doesn't take away from, like you said, how horrific her actions are, but it does at least explain how she even was able to get to the point of performing said actions.
Mm-hmm. So, Daisy's Destruction is a series of 3 videos depicting Peter and Liesel torturing and raping multiple victims, including an 18-month-old toddler named Daisy, but all of the victims were children. It shows Daisy being severely whipped, burnt, and sexually abused by Liesel. Daisy did fortunately survive this horrific abuse, but her injuries were so severe that it said she'll never be able to have children of her own.
Like, so sick. Like, so sick. And, like, to children. Like, I could really just go on forever about this, but, like, sick. Like, it's literally giving me, like, I don't know if you've had this before, where you hear something and your body almost doesn't know how to respond and you kind of get acid reflux. Like, I quite literally have acid reflux right now.
Yeah. The film shows Peter forcing one 11-year-old girl named Cindy to dig her own grave under the floor of the house that he was renting after he made a video of him raping her and strangling her to death with a rope. They were the most devastating thing I've ever seen, Ruby Magalong, one of the two lawyers prosecuting Peter, said. Footage of a 5-year-old girl who Peter and Liesel allegedly raped and tortured reportedly made Filipino investigators cry when they viewed it. I cried when I was watching them, Ruby said. It was hard to believe what I was seeing. Somebody could do those things to children.
Well, yeah.
I just, can imagine the thought process of, filming a video of, you raping and torturing a child, and then in that same video making her dig her own grave and then killing her.
But that's what I mean. It's so beyond sick and evil. It's like somebody thinking to themselves, what is the possible worst thing that I could do to not just a person, but to a kid, and to make them dig their own grave, is beyond anything I've ever heard.
It's I just can't even I just know how scared that child would have been. So I just can't even imagine.
I can't even
doing
fathom
that.
Beyond the fear and the understanding and the not knowing, and a kid too. Kids' brains think so differently from us, anyways. Did she? But that's the thing. Did she even understand what was happening?
Probably not. She just probably knows she's being hurt by these people and she can't leave, and now they're making her do something and then they're hurting her again.
Yeah, just horrific. So horrific.
Yeah. So prosecutors allege that Peter and a girlfriend coaxed 2 teenage girls to come into Peter's house with the promise of food. Peter was alleged to have given the girls alcohol and forced them to perform sex acts between them, a scene that he filmed. The prosecutor alleged that when the girls tried to escape, Peter forced them to dig graves in the basement of the house and threatened that he would bury them there. After 5 days, the girls were released by Peter's girlfriend, Carmen Alvarez, who began feeling remorse after coming home to see the two in pet collars and reported what had happened. Peter had many customers for these snuff films that he made. People on the internet would pay as much as $10,000 per view.
Monsters. And honestly, anybody who pays for that kind of content is just as evil as the people who are creating that content. Vile.
Agreed.
So fucking sick.
Meanwhile, another Australian pedophile named Matthew David Graham, better known as Lux, was drawn in by Peter's violent videos. At the time, Lux was a 21-year-old nanotechnology student at La Trobe University in Melbourne. He lived at home with his parents. However, Lux hadn't been showing up to class and instead preferred to stay in his room on his laptop. Funnily enough, his online footprint was almost non-existent. The only glimpse of him was Facebook, and his profile was shut tight. There was nothing on him. He had no criminal record and had been a star VCE student at the local high school, but was isolated and diagnosed with schizoid personality disorder, anxiety, and depression. Online, however, on the dark web, his suite of sites called Pedo Empire were getting up to 400,000 hits a day.
These kinds of stories are the ones I think of when people are you don't really know a person, because it's he's a 22-year or 21-year-old student doing this. It's just mind-boggling.
So Lux operated Hurt to the Core, one of the dark web's most notorious sites. Here, thousands of people shared abuse content, much of it featuring young children. This content is known as Hurtcore, a form of pornography that features non-stimulated pain and torture. Lux took one of Peter's most notorious videos, Daisy's Destruction, and put it on his site, amplifying its audience. Lux claimed that he had published the video on his own website in the name of freedom. Law enforcement...
Freedom?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, continue.
Law enforcement quickly took note of the disturbing video, thank God, and because it seemed to include someone speaking a few words in Dutch. It drew attention of the Dutch police, although it was determined that the person in the video was not speaking Dutch and had a strong Australian accent. The Dutch police had collected so much evidence against this person that they remained on the case, turning it into an international investigation. The international barriers in this investigation completely disappeared, noted Dutch detective Farid El-Hemouti about working with the Australians. Everyone wanted the same thing, getting the responsible people behind bars. The investigation to catch Peter had been difficult. It felt like looking for a needle in a haystack, said Detective Farid. Digitally, Peter hid himself very well, but we still found tiny new pieces of the puzzle, which together eventually led to the suspect. At dawn on a Tuesday in late August 2014, police raided the house of Lux. Police raided Lux's house. Investigators said that during the raid, he was very staunch and confident, denying everything. Inspector Wayne Newman asked Lux to unlock his laptop. He refused, but he willingly handed over his phone and password, which was a big mistake. So the cache on his phone, he thought he hadn't fully cleared it, and there were 3 images that he didn't even know were there. 2 of dead children and 1 of a baby being stood on, which...
Just on his phone?
On his phone.
Whoa, okay.
He was charged with possessing child abuse material and failing to comply with an order to provide his laptop password. He was in custody and the clock for police was ticking. It was a catch-22, said Inspector Wayne. If we couldn't link him to bigger stuff, we couldn't keep him in custody. If he was out, he could wipe everything. The hard drives from his bedroom in the house were seized. One went to Europol in Germany, the other to the FBI in Washington, D.C., but even they couldn't unlock them. In 2013, through the U.S. Cybertip hotline, he offered to tell all in return for bitcoins and immunity. The FBI had already shut down the Irish servers he was using, known as Freedom Hosting, but Lux had started up his sites again. Later in court trials, it emerged that he had stumbled on the dark web when web browsing an open web forum called 4chan when he was in year 12. He denied any sexual... Of course, right? Like, we can't have an internet story without 4chan.
No, and it's always like the evil shit always somehow seems to link back to 4chan specifically. Like, I would be so interested to know why that is, but I don't know.
He denied any sexual interest in children until very late in the piece, preferring instead to position himself in an interview by encrypted email with a journalist investigating pedophilia on the dark web as a champion of free speech. Then, while Europol Task Force Argo and Victoria Police scrambled to find out more about him, the FBI had a breakthrough, the details of which are suppressed by Victorian courts, but their methods establish Graham as Lux. He was visited in jail, and while he was on remand and told he could be charged with all manner of grievous offenses in the US or he could admit all in Australia. Graham opted for the latter and finally agreed to show his password. I had the pen and paper ready, Detective Senior Constable Christine Stafford recalled, and I could see that he had no muscle memory because, of course, he never wrote it down. She went to an office, unplugged the keyboard from a computer, and put it before him. He immediately typed it out, the password. 64 characters, including symbols and numbers from memory.
I'm speechless.
I can barely remember like a 3-character password. Like
64 characters? And all on memory?
Like, that's genuinely how you know he's insane.
That's like, I don't even know, like, if that's a psychopath or sociopath or what that is. This is not, like, schizo. This is, like, something else.
Yeah. So the full extent of his crimes and associations were revealed. He was, to law enforcement agencies around the world, one of the world's worst online pedophiles. He admitted 13 charges, including the unthinkable crimes of advising a Russian man how to abduct, rape, and kill a 5-year-old girl, and encouraging a British man to rape a disabled girl in his care. So he was literally... So he had his website, right? That he's making money off of for all these fucking horrific videos that people want, but should never want. Just gonna say that. And he was literally encouraging them how to do these things so that they would film it and put it on his site.
But that's the thing. That's like, he's networking. He's literally not just managing a website where he's already making money off of people who are already doing these horrific things. He's using his own personal interests and fascinations to get other people to produce content specifically for him and his own financial and personal gain. Like, that is literally so mind-boggling. Like, like I said, I'm just speechless. Like, it feels so evil. Like, this whole thing is evil. Like, literally. Like, that you can't get more evil than just evil. But, like, to even take it to the level that he is, I just don't even have words for it.
I don't either. So the payoff for him was obviously the right to host the resulting videos on his empire, and in the only world he engaged with meaningfully, he was all-powerful. Graham also procured videos from another Melbourne pedophile, whose name cannot be published because he was filming his niece being abused.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, awesome. So, according to Victorian Police Assistant Commissioner Steve Fontana, 30 children have been rescued internationally as a result of the Lux investigation. All children from his wider network of contacts. They have been added to the Europol Global Victim Identification Database. A new Victorian law on giving over passwords to police has been created. So County Court Judge Michael Tiney watched Daisy's destruction, which Lux had procured as a stunt to draw traffic onto his website. Referring to Daisy's destruction, the judge said, "How can any human view that impassively? The infant was being tortured, actual physical torture. An extremely trusting, vulnerable child who begins smiling, wearing a nappy, and ends a wailing physical wreck. I have seen some shocking things over the journey of my career, and I have never seen anything like that." Lux was sentenced to 15 years in prison after a judge described his crimes as pure evil.
Mm-hmm. Evil and, like, monstrous. And this is, again, like, when you tell stories of, like, the types of things that people do or, like, rationalize or, like, feel like they can, or I don't even know how to fully describe it. But this is why, like, I'm not totally scared by, like, say, like, ghosts or, like, aliens, because there is nothing more monstrous than a human being. Like, the kinds of things that, like, these evil fucking people do to, like, children or animals or, like, anything else you can come up with other people. Like, humans are the most monstrous creatures on this fucking planet.
They truly are. I'm afraid.
Yeah, 100%.
So, looping back to the creator of Daisy's Destruction, Peter,
right.
He was tracked in Malabay City and arrested on February 20th, 2015. Investigators had 6 warrants for his arrest, all relating to the abduction and sexual abuse of 2 cousins. While they searched for Peter in the Philippines, investigators tracked down 3 primary victims in Daisy's Destruction. Liza, victim number 1, was found to be alive, as well as Daisy, victim number 2, who had lasting physical injuries from her severe mistreatment. And according to Liesel, Peter recorded himself in a video with Cindy, victim 3, who was the girl who he made dig her own grave.
Right.
In 2015, a suspicious fire ripped through an evidence room that contained Peter's films. The fire destroyed evidence including hardware, memory cards, a camera, and a chain that was allegedly used by Peter during the abuse he was on trial for. Some people believe that Peter may have bribed a local police officer to ignite the fire, but that is completely hearsay, and it is unknown who or what started the fire. Just gonna put that out there. Reportedly, Peter was confident he could walk free from jail because of the lost evidence from the fire. Thankfully, the case against him was strong enough without all that evidence, which the case has to be very strong for that all that evidence to not matter.
Yeah. And like, I find it really hard to believe that was an accidental fire in just the evidence room with all his like torture shit in there. Yeah, right. Accident. Coincidence? I think not.
It makes me so mad. Like, it makes me genuinely so mad.
And
like,
the cockiness to be like, oh, you can't arrest me. You've lost all of your evidence. Like, the cockiness. It's vomitous.
It really is. So, although Peter claimed to be remorseful, he hardly backed up his words with deeds. By pleading not guilty, Peter forced at least 10 of his victims to testify and relive their hellish experiences. He also likely continued to operate his dark web empire, exchanging phone calls and texts with his accomplice Leah Zell before she was finally arrested. Peter faced a total of 75 charges and, according to a German television news channel, was alleged to have sexually abused 75 children. Which is fucking insane.
Like I said, I don't even have words. Like, it just keeps getting worse. Like, how... Ugh!
He was on trial with others who assisted in the production of his pornography, including 4 men, a German named Christian Rusch, 2 Filipinos named Alexander Lau and Maria Dorothea Chai, and a Brazilian named Hanel Catano de Oliveira. If I had my choice, it would be death for Scully. I want it to happen, Chief Prosecutor Jamie Umpa said, according to Fairfax Media. The chief prosecutor said that unless the death penalty was reintroduced, prosecutors would push for Peter to be given a maximum life sentence for human trafficking in addition to 10 years for each of the 5 sexual abuse charges, a total of 100 years in jail. However, Philippine law means that Peter would be released after serving 30 years and deported to Australia for the rest of his sentence. Capital punishment was outlawed in the Philippines in 2006, following the opposition from the Catholic Church, but President Rodrigo Duterte, who has built a controversial tough-on-crime reputation that includes encouraging the vigilante murders of drug users, has called for criminals who commit serious crimes, including rape, to be executed. Peter was sentenced to life in prison in June 2018 and an additional 129 years in 2022. Judge Jose Escobar also ordered Peter and Carm to pay 5 million Filipino pesos, which is around 87,000 US dollars, to the victims. Liesel was sentenced to 126 years, and 2 accomplices, Alexander Leo and Maria Dorothea Chai, were given 9 years each. Claims have been made that Peter continues to demand special treatment in the prison, which is 15 kilometers outside of Cagayan de Oro in the southern island of the Philippines. Peter's former lawyer, Alejandra Jose Payuna, has revealed Peter's list of demands in jail, which include a mobile phone, fresh beef and pork and chicken. In a sense, he is a demanding person, his lawyer said. At first, he instructed my staff to bring him corned beef, pork, beans, eggs, and kilos of fresh pork. And then he said it's hot outside, so his cell needs an electric fan. Jail officials denied the requests, as they should, because this man deserves literally nothing.
Literally, you are not in a position to be demanding things when you are in fucking jail.
Like, he's like, I need fresh pork. And they're like, no.
They're like, nah, man, you get regular pork because you're in jail. Like, you get
For
fresh.
doing horrific shit.
It's like he's treating this like it's a stay in like a hotel or something. Like, no. You do not get your fresh beef or your electric fan or your cell phone when you're in jail for doing horrific, evil, monstrous things.
Like, sir, just no. So jail officials denied his request, but Peter's sister had allegedly contacted a local government advocate to complain about his treatment in custody. Peter appears to be an intelligent man. I could say he's very well educated. He speaks and conveys his messages very well and talks with sense. His lawyer said, he looks normal, so it's hard to believe that he's a pedophile. Police data shows that the Philippines is one of the top 10 producers of child pornography in the world, a place where predators exploited poverty and turned children into commodities. Melbourne forensic psychologist Dr. Lisa Warren called it true predatory behavior. These men know the wrongfulness of their act and they are not ill, Warren said. When you are using a child as a commodity, it says a lot about an individual. It is understood that Peter had never been charged with child sex crimes in Australia, but numerous former associates said that he had a gross sexual history, including, like, looping back to the beginning, his young Malaysian girlfriend Ling, who he pimped out to his friends.
Well, that's just it. He's literally been fucked in the head since the beginning.
So he pimped out Ling in his online escort service. Peter was also behind another website solely used to advertise Ling and services they obtained from her. Well, apparently anything goes for this girl for the right price, one wrote. I've got to say she was quite a bit more attractive than I expected, but not nearly as passionate / lively / intimate or playful as her profile and the reviews had me to believe, another said. The sex for hire business appeared to be an underground operation as there is no record of Peter ever having a license to operate an escort service.
Wow, shocking.
So, one former associate recalled a distressing scene where Peter locked out a completely naked Ling from their North Melbourne residence and she had to be let into their nearby office. Former associates said the escort operation stemmed from Peter's money obsession, and this motive seemingly goes to the heart of the financial fraud that he was charged with. In Australia, with Australian Services and Investments Commission, alleging that Peter and a business partner siphoned off $1.8 million of investors' money in a property investment scheme for their own use, while the rest was funneled into keeping the scheme going. This came after Peter's investment in an earlier real estate scheme that targeted home buyers with credit problems, and one resulted in adverse findings by the ASIC and Consumer Affairs Victoria. There was evidence that Mr. Scully is a person who is prepared to push the boundaries of commercial morality if liability results to embrace bankruptcy. Supreme Court Justice Kim Hargrave found Peter has morphed from a skillful financial fraudster used to pushing the boundaries of commercial ethics to a man accused of crimes so heinous it belies basic morality in a seemingly short space of time. Dr. Warren, who would not comment on the case, said there was always something in a person's history that leads to abusing and exploiting children. All behavior has a purpose to it. There is no such thing as a random behavior, she said. I've worked with people who have killed others, and it's a very, very different thing when you meet someone who is driven by delusions and psychosis. But these men know the wrongfulness of their act. Years later, in 2021, unfortunately, Daisy's destruction has resurged after it was allegedly found in the possession of an American reality star known as Josh Duggar. And that's the cap to our story.
Is that how you got there? You were researching Josh Duggar?
No.
And you found this?
No, so I knew about Josh Duggar, and he is on my list of people to talk about just because you know. He's
Yeah.
done some very shitty things.
Yeah.
But I found out about this because there's this thing called the horror movie Iceberg. I love horror films.
Yeah.
So at like the top, there's like The Conjuring or, you know, like Tusk. Like things that are like scary but tame. And at the very bottom, there's like legitimate snuff films with like Daisy's Destruction. And people have a tendency of being like, okay, The Conjuring's not that scary, so they jump to the very bottom and they watch these things that are like, some of them are snuff films.
Snuff films are not horror movies.
But they're showing the most graphic and horrific things, because there's things like Daisy's Destruction, which is like just torture and rape of children, and then there's things that are like literally just compilations of like ISIS beheadings and like other random acts of violence.
But again, like, it's so fucked. Like, why do people do this? It's like, I remember being on the internet back in like around the 2010s or whatever it was, and it used to be that you could go on places like 4chan or on Chive or like other similar forums, and people would post videos of like what you just said, like people being beheaded or other random things, and it would just pop up on your feed and like stuff like this. Like, I don't understand why people feel like they need to see this stuff.
It's like people posting on like Reddit or like Twitter videos of people like doing something stupid and like actually dying, and it's like, I really didn't want to see that today, you know?
It's not needed either. Like you just said, the horror movie Iceberg thing, like, that is not a horror movie. Like, this is not even like, here's the thing too, like, I know I have seen people refer to this kind of stuff as taboo content before or whatever, but it's like, it's not even that. This is stuff that literally should not exist. Like, this is not, there's no entertainment value. This is not something that people should be trying to find.
No, and like, if you, like, okay, first of all, you shouldn't watch Daisy's Destruction because it's literally child pornography, torture, and murder, but like, also, you're gonna end up on a list if you even try and find that at all.
As you should.
And third of all, you're gonna traumatize yourself because it's fucking horrific.
And also,
and it's
like,
not, it's real. It's not fake. It's not like when someone dies in a horror movie where it's an actor and they're okay. It's like, that's a real person. That's the thing,
and it's not telling a story. Like, like you just said, a horror movie is like a fictional situation in which actors are partaking consensually in the retelling of a story that has either been created by directors or is inspired off of a real life story. That is completely different. Anything to do with a snuff film, like, here's the thing, you telling me about, say, Daisy's Destruction, and you're telling me, okay, this is about a toddler who is abused and tortured and all these different things. Just you telling me that, I already know that I will not be watching that is not content to be consumed. The fact that that exists is evil and monstrous. And just like, if you are the kind of person who is like thinking like, oh, I'm so curious, I need to watch that. No, you fucking don't. No, you fucking don't. No, you know what it's about. There is no mystery there. There is no curiosity there. You literally have just been told what it's about. You do not need to see it.
You literally don't. Like, I don't know. I love horror films. I love, like, intense horror films. Like, I'm very into French Extremity and stuff. But I would never even contemplate trying to watch something like this. Or, like, even the, like, they're called like mixtape movies where it's like more like compilations of like beheadings or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't want to see real people dying. Like, that's not, like, I love horror and I love the like thrill of it, but that's not it. Like, it defeats the whole purpose of the genre, in my opinion.
Oh, 100%. And it also gives like
I want to be scared, not traumatized, you know?
That's the thing. Like, it's like, okay, like, that's like, in my head, not, like I said, not even the same category of stuff, you know?
No.
Like, one is something that maybe you watch in court when you're sentencing someone to prison for life. The other one is something you watch at home at Halloween. Two different things.
I don't know. I feel like it's also like, a lot of the people trying to get their hands on that type of thing are watching it because it is something that they're interested in. And I don't like to kink shame people, but I'm willing to do it if you're a pedophile.
Yeah, I will kink shame every single pedophile that has ever existed. I'm being dead
You
serious.
should be ashamed.
If you are somebody who finds sexual fascination in anything related to children or any of this other kind of stuff, like people
or
literally
really anything
dying,
unconsensual.
yeah, you're pathetic and disgusting and vile. And I am shaming you.
Yeah.
Condemning you, actually. Well, let's
were
take it up a notch.
fully shamed.
Yeah, and
I just
fucked,
feel...
and fully fucked in the head.
Yeah, I don't know. And when I was researching this story, I found like a lot of stuff from like the families of these kids who got into these situations with Peter.
Oh, I cannot
and,
even
like,
imagine how they feel.
Like destroyed they feel for like allowing their child to be put in this situation and for trusting him. And I'm just like, I just like can't even imagine, like, as a parent or as like an aunt, the like regret you would feel for allowing that to happen. And like
forever, for the rest of your life. Yeah. Man, I don't know. Like I was telling you, I could literally go on for ages how awful and horrific this is, but also I need to digest. So I'm going to request that we end the story here.
It's done. I'm sorry you were warned at the beginning, but I feel like it wasn't enough.
Honestly, though, it is, like, I just will say, like, as an end cap, it is important to talk about this kind of stuff, though, because I think sometimes people don't realize the levels that some people will go to, and also...
Or that stuff like this can actually happen.
Yeah, and stuff like this can actually happen, and also the risk of, like, you know, not even, like... So, risk in the way of... People post this stuff on the internet, you know what I mean? And people do this kind of stuff. And people will manipulate and lie and put themselves in situations where they can get close to vulnerable persons, so children, people with disabilities, whatever else, to do this kind of stuff. And it is important to have it in the back of your head and be like, you know, if this is a story that Jenn and Emily covered and this is something that really happened, like, it pays to be mindful and it pays to know some of these things, because then, like, you know, then you're prepared. You're prepared knowing that there's going to be people going online looking for this kind of stuff and everything else, right? Like, it's not fake.
For sure. And I feel like it's also something to consider when you are a
parent posting your
influencer, putting your child online. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Because that in its own way kind of leads to some of this other stuff. Not saying, you know, everything leads to an extremity or anything like that, but there are lots of closeted pedophiles out there and people who
unfortunately
actively look for content where you're thinking it's like a cute video of your kid, you know, maybe wandering around in a diaper or not wearing shoes or doing something else, and there is somebody out there finding a sexual fascination with that. So yes, it is your job as a parent to protect your kids, because people are fucked in the head.
They sure are. But that's all for the story. We're feeling warm and fuzzy after this, right?
I feel a little nauseous, actually. I literally been eyeballing this thing of Pepto that's just out of reach for me because I think I need it. Because holy moly, I feel sick. Okay, but yes, thank you for listening to our show. Your support is always appreciated, and I'm not gonna say if you liked today's episode, because whoa. But if this podcast is something you enjoy, please make sure to leave us a review, because we really appreciate that. We also have our social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok if you'd like to follow us on any of those networks. We have our email, which is wheelofcrime@gmail.com, if you'd like to email us anything. If you would like to donate to the show, we are available on Patreon, which is wheelofcrime@Patreon. And then we also have our... Did I already say our website? No, email? wheelofcrime@gmail.com, website www.wheelofcrime.com.
One of those.
There's something I've
stories
mixed up. That comes last. I have 5 things. So what? Patreon, reviews, website, email, social media. I think I got it. Okay. So then also we have our listener stories. If you've listened to any of our episodes and you want to submit a listener story, we are doing a campfire story themed episode-ish. I say themed. Haha, not really. It's just called End of the Summer and Camping. Haha. If you would like to submit a listener story, you may have the chance to be featured on the podcast, and that is always fun, and everybody really loves them. So if you could do that, that'd be great. And besides that, I think that is about it.
Yes, that's it. That's all, and we'll see you next week for another less intense episode. Okay, bye.